Imagine being stranded in a frozen wilderness, miles from civilization, with no hope of rescue in sight. What would you do? How would you survive? On October 13, 1972, a small aircraft carrying 45 souls, including a young rugby team, their family and friends, lifted off from Uruguay, bound for Santiago, Chile. It was supposed to be a short, 3-hour flight. Their journey was filled with laughter and anticipation, but as they flew over the towering Andes Mountains, the weather took a treacherous turn. Caught in a violent storm, their plane could not hold. It crashed into the unforgiving Andes, leaving the survivors stranded in a brutal, icy expanse. This is the harrowing story of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571, a tale of hope, desperation, and the incredible will to survive against all odds. October 12, 1972. A small chartered aircraft revs its engines on a runway in Uruguay. Aboard are 45 passengers, rugby players, their friends and family. Their spirits are high, the sky clear as they set off for Santiago. Their journey was expected to be smooth and short, but as they approached the majestic Andes, the weather turned. A storm brewed, menacing and unpredictable. Faced with the looming threat, the pilots made a critical decision. They couldn't push through. The plane touched down in Mendoza, Argentina, hoping the storm would pass by morning. The next day, skies seemed clearer. The plane took off again at 2:18 p.m., optimism in the air. But this hope was short-lived. Just over an hour into their flight, at 3:21 p.m., as they began their descent towards Santiago, disaster struck. Turbulence shook the plane violently. The passengers, once jovial, now gripped their seats in fear. Surrounded by clouds and with visibility near zero, the pilots struggled to navigate. Suddenly, the warning alarms blared, a signal no one aboard wanted to hear. Through a break in the clouds, a passenger spotted a horrifying sight, the sheer face of a mountain, perilously close. The pilots, realizing the imminent danger, attempted to climb over the obstacle. But it was too late. The tail of the aircraft struck the mountain. The impact was catastrophic. The rear of the plane ripped open, ejecting 2 rows of seats and 3 passengers into the freezing air. The plane, now severely damaged, continued to climb for a few seconds more before it began its tragic descent. Another collision sheared off the left wing, sending more passengers out into the cold abyss. The front section of the plane, all that remained, careened down the mountainside, crashing onto a glacier. The fuselage slid at terrifying speeds before coming to a harrowing stop. Inside, the survivors were in shock. Amidst the twisted metal and snow, 33 souls were still alive but injured, terrified, and stranded far from help. In the chilling silence that followed the crash, the survivors faced a new reality. Among the mangled wreckage on a glacier, high in the Andes, their battle for survival had just begun. Roberto Canessa and Gustavo Zerbino, both young medical students, were among the few uninjured. Canessa, with tears in his eyes, recalls, "Every decision we made with a heavy heart, knowing our survival hung by a thread." They quickly assumed the role of makeshift doctors. Amid the chaos and their own shock, they navigated through the scattered debris and snow, assessing injuries, from broken limbs to frostbite, and providing critical first aid with the limited medical supplies salvaged from the wreckage. The cold was brutal, unrelenting. The survivors, mostly young athletes, were ill-equipped for the sub-zero temperatures. They huddled together among the debris, trying to preserve body heat as the sun set and temperatures plummeted. Stranded miles from any traditional flight path, their location was as remote as it was harsh. Towering around them, the immense Andes Mountains stood like silent, indifferent giants. The survivors faced a dire scarcity of supplies. Only a handful of chocolate bars, a tin of mussels, and a few bottles of wine remained among the wreckage, a grim testament to their plight. The reality was stark. They were injured, some severely. The cold was a constant threat, and food supplies wouldn't last more than a few days. Every passing hour reduced their chances of rescue. As darkness enveloped the crash site on the first chilling night, the survivors' resolve was put to the ultimate test. Desperate to fend off the biting cold, they improvised insulation with luggage, torn airplane seats, and packed snow against the fuselage gaps. Every effort to keep warm was a direct battle against the looming threat of hypothermia. Dawn brought no relief, only the harsh truth that if they were to survive, it would be through their own efforts. Each day, they melted snow for water and rationed their meager supplies, stretching what little they had. In the face of overwhelming odds, the human spirit showed its resilience. Bound by their dire circumstances, they forged a bond, a commitment to survive, no matter the cost. As the survivors battled the elements, rescue teams scrambled. Aircraft crisscrossed the skies, searching desperately for any sign of the plane. The aircraft was white, blending seamlessly with the endless snow and ice below. Days passed with no success. The harsh terrain and the plane's inconspicuous color against the snow made the search nearly impossible. With each passing day, hope dwindled. After exhaustive efforts, the official search was called off. The survivors were left to fend for themselves, their plight unknown to the world outside. Isolated and alone, as the days passed, a suffocating silence fell over the group. Food supplies had dwindled to nothing, the relentless cold biting at their bones. Each moment stretched into eternity as survival hung by a thread. Faced with a heart-wrenching decision, the survivors confronted a reality that would etch deep scars in their memories. To survive, they made the unthinkable choice to rely on the remains of their fallen companions. This decision was not made lightly. The psychological burden was immense. Ethical dilemmas tore at their consciences. Yet, the will to live pushed them beyond the boundaries of their former lives. Roberto Canessa, one of the medical students, took the lead. With a trembling hand and a heavy heart, he made the first cut. It was a moment of profound despair, but also of desperate resolve. The act of survival became a grim ritual. Each day, they confronted their choice, driven by the basic human instinct to survive. Amidst the horror, they maintained a semblance of dignity, praying for the souls of those they had lost. As the weeks unfolded, the survivors' ingenuity became their lifeline. Marooned on a desolate glacier, they devised innovative signals for rescue, each day clinging to a fragile thread of hope. They crafted large letters in the snow and lined up brightly colored objects to catch the eye of any passing aircraft. But the snow and vastness swallowed their efforts, leaving them unseen and unheard. Amidst the wreckage, a glimmer of hope emerged as they unearthed a battered transistor radio. With cautious, trembling hands, the survivors managed to repair it, desperate for any news from the outside world. When it finally crackled to life, their anticipation was palpable, hanging in the frigid air. As they huddled around the only surviving radio, their hearts filled with a mix of hope and dread. The static finally cleared, and the stark, chilling announcement came through. The search had been officially called off. Overwhelmed by a sense of abandonment, they faced the grim reality. The harrowing realization settled in among the group. They were utterly alone, abandoned by the outside world, with no rescue teams coming. This stark reality forced them to rely solely on their own dwindling resources and fading strength. The crushing realization that the world had forgotten them tightened like a vice around their spirits, suffocating their hopes with each passing day. Despite this, a fierce determination to survive spurred them on. They continued to signal for help, crafting large SOS signs in the snow and using mirrors to reflect sunlight, clinging to the hope that someone somewhere might spot them. One fateful night, the peril of their mountainous prison became starkly evident. Without warning, an avalanche roared down the slopes, a massive wave of snow and ice that swiftly engulfed the fuselage, burying it under mounds of heavy, suffocating snow. The survivors, already battling the relentless cold and dwindling supplies, now faced an immediate threat to their very air supply. 8 lives were lost in moments, their cries silenced by the cold, suffocating blanket. With dwindling supplies and enveloped in isolation, the survivors confronted not just the threat of starvation, but also the very mountain that imprisoned them. The Andes, with their relentless cold and unpredictable avalanches, became an active adversary in their struggle to stay alive. Trapped beneath the ice, they dug tirelessly. When they finally broke free, they emerged not just into the blinding sunlight, but into a renewed commitment to live, to fight, to not let the mountain claim them. With each sunrise, hope dwindled. Finally, two survivors, Fernando Parrado and Roberto Canessa, decided to take the ultimate risk. If rescue wouldn't come to them, they would go to it. Armed with determination and a few supplies, they set out into the vast, white unknown. Their goal was simple yet daunting: find civilization. The mountain was ruthless. Each step was a battle against the biting cold and treacherous slopes. The vastness of the Andes mocked their smallness, their vulnerability. With each step over the treacherous icy ridges and through relentless blizzards, Parrado and Canessa's journey grew more perilous. The white expanse of snow and rock stretched endlessly in every direction, indistinguishable and disorienting. Doubt haunted their every step. Were they inching closer to salvation, or were they merely wandering deeper into the vast icy tomb of the Andes? Days turned into nights, and each night was colder than the last. In the pitch-black night, they huddled together, sharing one tattered sleeping bag, frayed edges fluttering in the icy wind as their sole barrier against the freezing death that lurked outside. But with each new dawn, they pressed on. Hunger gnawed at them. Their bodies screamed for rest, but their spirits refused to break. Atop a ridge, they finally saw a glimmer of hope, a distant green valley far below. It was a sight for sore eyes, a promise of life. Revitalized by the first sight of green in days, they began their precarious descent towards the valley. Each step was fraught with risk, sliding on unstable snow and navigating sharp declines. Yet the vision of that verdant patch imbued them with a renewed sense of purpose and urgency. After 10 grueling days of navigating the merciless Andes, surviving on sheer will and dwindling supplies, Parrado and Canessa, exhausted to their core, witnessed what seemed like a mirage. There, across the swiftly flowing river, stood a man on a horse. This sight sparked a mix of disbelief and overwhelming relief in their weary hearts. It was their first sign of other human life since the crash. The farmer, Sergio Catalan, was as stunned as they were hopeful. Communication was a challenge with the roaring river between them, but the message was clear. Help was on the way. Parrado scribbled their plight on the paper. "I come from a plane that fell in the mountains. We need help." He threw it back across the water. Sergio rowed for hours to alert authorities. The next day, helicopters roared into the sky, heading towards the coordinates given by Parrado. On December 22nd, 72 days after the crash, rescue helicopters spotted the wreckage. One by one, the survivors were lifted from the icy grip of the Andes. The world watched in awe, captivated by their story. Headlines around the globe proclaimed the miracle of the Andes, a testament to human resilience in the face of stark adversity. This ordeal tested the limits of human endurance. It revealed the incredible strength of the human will and the profound bonds that can form in the face of shared suffering. Each survivor carried the weight of those harrowing days, but also a sense of deep gratitude and connection to those who stood by them, when every moment seemed like it could be their last. The legacy of Flight 571 is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that hope can flourish, even in the most desperate conditions. The ordeal of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 is more than a story of survival. It is a profound narrative about human limits, the power of hope, and the unyielding strength of the spirit. The survivors returned home changed forever. They carried back not just the physical scars from their ordeal, but also deep emotional marks. Yet they also brought back invaluable lessons of perseverance and unity. Globally, their story inspired books, films, and documentaries, touching millions with its raw honesty and stark depiction of human resilience. Educators and psychologists discuss the case, analyzing the mental and emotional resilience required to overcome such adversity. It serves as a powerful example in studies of survival psychology. Years later, the survivors, transformed by their ordeal, became vocal advocates for resilience and hope. Fernando Parrado reflects, "Every moment of despair taught us the value of life, leading many of us to dedicate our lives to helping others find strength in adversity. Their lives testify to the ability to overcome, even when the odds are unimaginable. As we reflect on their journey, we are reminded of the profound depths of courage and solidarity that can emerge in the face of unimaginable adversity. The human spirit, boundless and resilient, teaches us that with hope, anything is possible. In the face of unimaginable adversity, the human spirit's capacity to endure teaches us about the profound depths of courage and solidarity